Good morning, ma'am. Good morning, classmates. I am Erlyn Regencia, your reporter for today. Together with Miss Angelica Insigne and Anna Marie Bello, we are going to discuss another important literacy in the 21st century education, which is the arts and creative literacy. To give you a basic idea of what is artistic literacy, it is a teachable skill. You can learn arts by having a will to learn. It is not only about the given talent. Having the will to push and engage yourselves is the key to become literate in arts and make learning enjoyable. It is important for us future educators, even though we are not in line with arts education major, to learn about this to successfully integrate arts in the curriculum and to enhance the teaching and learning process as well. In this module, we are going to characterize artistic literacy, discuss the value of arts to education and practical life, identify approaches to developing or designing curriculum that cultivates the arts and creativity among learners, formulate a personal definition of creativity, and design creative and innovative classroom activities for a specific topic and grade level of students. Let us now define what is artistic literacy. According to the National Coalition for Core Arts Standards, a conceptual framework for arts learning, it is the knowledge and understanding required to participate authentically in the arts. Noong elementary tayo, di ba, kadalasan ay binabasa lang ng mga teacher natin yung concept ng drawing, sculpture, painting, music, media, dance, theater, and other visual arts, or binibigyan tayo ng mga print materials para basahin at unawain yung arts, which is masasabi nating hindi gaanong effective, lalo na sa mga students na hindi gaanong natututo sa pagbasa. Sa ganitong paraan, hindi natin masasabi na nade-develop ng teacher ang artistic literacy sa isang student. So, paano matutulungan ng teacher ang isang student to be an artistic literate individual? Students should be engaged in artistic creation processes directly through the use of materials like charcoal, paint or clay, musical instruments, and scores, and in specific spaces like concert halls, stages, dance rehearsal spaces, art studios, and computer labs. Supported ito ng learning by doing approach na pinopose ni John Dewey. Learning by doing is the idea that we learn more when we actually do the activity. For example, imagine that you are a jazz musician looking to understand how chords relate to one another. You have only the slightest knowledge of the new chords. Your fingers wouldn't find the right spots on the guitar. The chords wouldn't ring out, and rather than enjoying your time improvising with other musicians, you would come off stage dejected and reeling from frustrations. But with the learning by doing approach, you would gain a basic understanding of the chords and then hop on the stage to play this as an improvised piece with other musicians. So makikita natin dito yung active engagement, not passive practice. Active engagement facilitates deep learning and encourages mistakes, then know how to learn from those as well. So by letting students to have a deep engagement, it upended the traditional notion that learning happens through lectures and rote memorization. Going back to the artistic literacy, it was gained after some familiarity with the content. It works because the technique calls you to actively engage with the material and generate the knowledge yourself. What does this imply, or what are the essence of learning arts when everyone can do it if they want to? There are many researches that have recognized the significant benefits of arts learning and engagement in schooling. The arts have been shown to create environments and conditions that result in improved academic, social, and behavioral outcomes for students, from early childhood through the early and later years of schooling. But given na sobrang lawak ng arts at diverse and complex ang research na ini-implement sa ngayon, it is difficult to generalize the findings tungkol sa relationship ng arts and learning. The flexibility of the forms comprising the arts, kabilang dito yung painting, sculpture, literature, architecture, cinema, music, and theater, positions students to embody a range of literate practices to, first, use their minds in verbal and nonverbal ways. There are many complex feelings which cannot be expressed through verbal means, so people use arts in order to express their individual experiences and creativity. Hindi lang ito nakakatulong upang ma-exercise natin yung minds natin to critically think sa verbal way. Like painting as one of the forms of art. Through this, much is said without saying anything. It is not only a tool for recording human history, but also a tool of conveying a wide range of the stories, emotions, and feelings. Number two is to communicate complex ideas in a variety of forms. Katulad nung sa number one, arts is indeed a form of communication. From ancient times, people have used images to communicate. They are putting visual arts, commonly in early caves, that can explore concepts or ideas without much using written statements. Art has been used for many purposes throughout the year, including reinforcing religious doctrine or linking religious and political power. Number three is to understand words, sounds, or images. Diba authors uses verbal languages and artists uses visual languages to communicate. The painting, photography, illustration, use of color, light and shadow, contrast, composition, depth, and focus help to practice and hone students' skills of reading and interpreting images. Ganon din sa music and other means of verbal performances. Nadidistinguish natin ang mood nito sa tone ng voice, sa mga metaphors na ginagamit, at sa mga facial expressions at body languages used by the performer. Number 4 is to imagine new possibilities. We can't all be Van Goghs, but exposure to and experience with the arts allows us students to create, design, generate, and compose new ideas. Kadalasan, tayong mga estudyante talaga ay out of mga disposed materials ay nakakapag-produce tayo ng something new dahil inspired tayo sa mga arts na nakikita natin. And lastly, it helps students to persevere, to reach goals, and make them happen. It provides a simple, tangible opportunity to accomplish a task and demonstrates the benefits to self-efficacy. Sabi dito, engaging in quality arts education experiences provides students with an outlet for powerful creative expression, communication, aesthetically rich understanding, and connection to the world around them. From societal perspective, naniniwala sila that art can be a unifying force to decreasing social barriers and strengthening interpersonal connections. While in physiological perspective, making art has powerful effects on our bodies. It prevents the onset of mental illness and age-related physical decline, supporting the treatment or management of mental illness and neurological disorders. As a result, it builds confidence, connects students to the moment, themselves, and to others, and to express their complex or difficult thoughts into view. Schoenfield argues that being able to critically read, write, and speak about art should not be the sole constituting factors for what counts as literacy in the arts. Considerably, more dialogue, discussion, and research are necessary to form a deeper picture of the arts and creativity more broadly. The cultivation of imagination and creativity and the formation of deeper theories surrounding multimodality and multiliteracies in the arts are paramount. Nasabi kanina na dapat you are able to critically read, write, and speak as a result of active engagement in art processes. Pero ayon nga kay Schoenfield, dapat hindi lang basta ito ang sakop ng literacy sa arts. Kailangan patuloy ka nag-engage sa mga deep dialogue, discussions, and in-depth researches para matuto kang mas mapalalim yung viewpoint mo sa arts and creativity. Ang mahalaga is you are able to explore and cultivate your imagination. And you are able to formulate deep theories kung saan ay bihasa ka na sa paggamit ng mga representational modes like storyboards, PowerPoint presentations, e-posters, e-books, brochures, and others. And you have successfully developed multiliteracy. You have a high comprehension reading skills, good writing skills, speaking skills, and mastering various digital media. Isa itong si Dr. Elliot Eisner sa nagbigay ng valuable lessons and benefits ng arts sa education. Siya ay isang well-known visionary in the field of arts and education. His work has supported the importance of forms of representation in education. His contributions to the field of arts education run deep and wide. Moving on to Elliot Eisner's 8 valuable lessons or benefits that education can learn from arts, number 1 is form and content cannot be separated. How something is said or done shapes the content of experience. Form is the visual organization of the artwork. How artists has used line, shape, value, color, etc. The decisions they make regarding form shape the work's impact and meaning. Halimbawa, sa paggamit ng color, blue symbolizes sadness or spirituality and red for angry. In terms of proportion naman, when an artist manipulates the proportions of common objects, it creates a surreal situation. And when the artist draws, for example, a small farmhouse against the largeness of the field, it will create a sense of isolation. So, masasabi talaga natin na inseparable ang form and content kasi the meaning came out naturally depending on how forms are organized. While in education, how something is taught, how curricula are organized, and how schools are designed impact upon what students will learn. These side effects may be the real main effects of practice. Number 2, everything interacts. There is no content without form and no form without content. When the content of a form is changed, so too is the form altered. Form and content are like two sides of a coin. Mayroong inherent relation ang form and content. That is why it is impossible to disconnect the two and look at them as completely different components. For example, in literature, ang form is prose. The content is presented through narration, vivid descriptions, and creation of assumptions. Kung babaguhin mo ang form to poetry naman, the content is presented through the use of shortened language in a clear and concise manner. Number 3, nuance matters. To the extent to which teaching is an art, attention to nuance is critical. How a word is spoken, how a gesture is made, how a line is written, and how a melody is played all affect the character of the whole. All depend upon the modulation of the nuances that constitute the act. Nuance is a subtle difference in or shade of meaning, expression, or sound. For example, saying that someone is stubborn usually has a negative connotation. That is, it comes with a negative feeling. On the other hand, describing someone as determined means almost the same thing, but it has more a positive connotation. The words that are chosen can make a huge difference in how the reader sees things. The words have different connotations, but there are only subtle differences in the meanings of the words, so they are nuanced. Number 4, surprise is not to be seen as an intruder in the process of inquiry, but as a part of the rewards one reaps when working artistically. No surprise, no discovery. And no discovery means no progress. Educators should not resist surprise, but create the conditions to make it happen. It is one of the most powerful sources of intrinsic satisfaction. Dito pumapasok yung tinatawag na element of surprise, kung saan makakatulong ito sa storytelling, for example, to elicit humor, meaning, suspense, or other emotions through unexpected revelation. Any of these will keep an audience interested. Dapat as an educator, we are thinking outside the box ideas at mabigyan ng magandang plot twist ang mga story na ipinapakinig natin sa mga students. Number 5, slowing down perception is the most promising way to see what is actually there. It is true that we have certain words to designate high levels of intelligence. We describe somebody as being swift, or bright, or sharp, or fast on the pick-up. Speed in its swift state is a descriptor for those we call smart. Yet, one of the qualities we ought to be promoting in our schools is a slowing down of perception. The ability to take one's time to smell the flowers, to really perceive in the Deweyan sense, and not merely to recognize what one looks at. Sabi nga ni Dewey, learning how to slow down perception is one of the primary ways in which one can enrich one's experience. So we should take things slowly in order to really see. Number 6. The limits of language are not the limits of cognition. We know more than we can tell. In common terms, literacy refers essentially to the ability to read and to write. But literacy can be reconceptualized as the creation and use of a form of representation that will enable one to create meaning. Meaning that we will not take the impressive language in its conventional form. In addition, literacy is associated with high-level forms of cognition. We tend to think that in order to know, one has to be able to say. However, as Polanyi reminds us, we know more than we can tell. Number 7. Somatic experience is one of the most important indicators that someone has gotten it right. Related to the multiple ways in which we represent the world through our multiple forms of literacy is the way in which we come to know the world through the entailments of our body. Sometimes, one knows a process or an event through one's skin. There's nothing in the head that was not first in the hand. Somatic experience is body knowledge, the sense of rightness of fit, an ability to discriminate without being able to articulate the conditions that made it possible. The body knows and forms the basis for intuition. The evidences helps us to know almost always supersedes and expands to more than what one can say about it. Number 8. Open-ended tasks permit the exercise of imagination. And an exercise of the imagination is one of the most important of human aptitudes. It is imagination, not necessity. That is the mother of invention. Imagination is the source of new possibilities. In the arts, imagination is a primary virtue. So, it should be in teaching of mathematics, in all of the sciences, in history, and indeed, in virtually all the human creates. This achievement would require for its realization a culture of schooling in which the imaginative aspects of the human condition were made possible. Makakatulong ang imagination for teachers to form activities that are exciting. Like for example sa math, di ba hindi naman lahat ng student ay fond of exploring this subject kasi nahihirapan daw silang intindihin. Naaalala ko lang yung ginawa naming way nung mga kaklase ko nung high school na ginawa namin ng rhyme at nilapatan ng tunog yung mga mathematical expression para mas mapadali naming masaulo yung formula which is super naging effective. That's all for What Does Education Can Learn from the Arts So That Schools Will Improve by Elliot A. Sneer. Let us now characterize who are artistically literate individuals. Paano ba natin masasabi na ang isang student ay isang artistically literate? Literature on art education and art standards in education cited the following as common traits of artistically literate individuals. Number 1. Use a variety of artistic media, symbols, and metaphors to communicate their own ideas and respond to the artistic communications of others. You are to transform something that is ordinary into something that stands out. You are conceptualizing and creating work of art. Malalim ka dapat mag-isip so that you will represent a person, place, thing, or idea by using an analogy in a creative way. Siyempre, dapat alam mo ang meaning ng symbols na gagamitin mo kasi it gives depth in the art. Like crow, which means death. Huwag yung basta-basta na lang gagamit ng mga symbols. Number 2. Develop creative personal realization in at least one art form in which they continue active involvement as an adult. Dapat, you're getting in touch with your inner child. Diba? There's an innocence and buoyancy to childhood. And as we age, that light-hearted nature seems to fade due to stress and life obligations that comes with adulthood. Marami akong kilala na they are transforming their frustrations into arts and are able to make meaningful peace. Taking time to release inhibitions and enjoy experimentation can foster the creative spirit and take the mind and body to new and exciting heights. By opening yourself up to the different avenues and experiences, you'll make a room for greater balance and fulfillment in your personal ventures. Number 3. Cultivate culture, history, and other connections through diverse forms and genres of artwork. Kagaya ng sinabi ko kanina, ayon kay Shenfield, dapat talaga nagsasagawa ka ng researches bago gumawa kasi makakatulong ito upang maging basis at para maging factual ang piece mo. Kasi it can be a source of information for future generation. Art influences society by changing opinions, instilling values, and translating experiences across space and time. So dapat you're taking effort para pag-aralan ang bawat angle ng art piece mo so that to gain positive learning out of it. Number 4. Find joy, inspiration, peace, intellectual stimulation, and meaning when they participate in arts. As an artist, it is normal to sometimes feel uncreative and uninspired. It is common to have your periods of low artistic inspiration, pero you won't stop because of this. In performing arts, kailangan na you have peace para makapag-isip at makapag-cultivate ka ng mga ideas in order to come up with valuable one. And lastly, they seek artistic experiences and support the arts in their communities. So, hindi dahil madami ng alam at gamay na ang arts, kailangan pa din na mag-a-attend sa mga art activities para mas ma-enhance yung ability nila. And of course, dapat may respect tayo sa ibang artwork, hindi yung nang di-discriminate. Kailangan pa rin na present yung positive values mo on how you appreciate others' work. You are artistically literate when you are supporting each other's work. Kung pwede na mag-ask ka ng question, mag-share ng knowledge, at maging curious sa mga bagay-bagay, be it, kasi makakatulong ito both side. Let's now talk about the issues in teaching creativity. Sabi dito ni Ken Robinson, creativity is about working in a highly focused way on ideas and projects, crafting them into their best forms and making critical judgments along the way. Based on my research, creativity began way back the Renaissance period. By simply doing something, you are creative. Sa famous TED Talk ni Ken Robinson, entitled Do Schools Kill Creativity and How to Escape Education's Death Valley, he stressed paradigms in the education system that hamper the development of creative capacity among learners. He emphasized that schools stigmatize mistakes. This primarily prevents students from trying and coming up with original ideas. He also reiterated the hierarchy of systems. Firstly, most useful subjects such as mathematics and languages for work are the top, while arts are at the bottom. Secondly, academic ability has come to dominate our view of intelligence. Curriculum competencies, classroom experiences, and assessment are geared toward the development of academic ability. Students are schooled in order to pass entrance exams in colleges and universities later on. Because of this painful truth, Robinson challenged educators to educate the well-being of learners and shift from the conventional leanings toward academic ability alone. Give equal weight to the arts, the humanities, and to the physical education. Students prosper best with a broad curriculum that celebrates their various talents. The arts aren't just important because they improve math courses. They are important because they speak to parts of children that are otherwise untouched, facilitate learning, and work toward stimulating curiosity among learners. Encouraging students to embrace their curiosity is an important part of education. It is the key to learning. In fact, studies shows that when we are curious about a subject, we are much more likely to remember information we learned about the subject, awaken and develop powers of creativity among learners, and view intelligence as diverse, dynamic, and distinct, contrary to common belief that it should be academic ability geared. Kailangan na i-consider din natin as intelligence yung arts at mas palawakin natin yung paniniwala natin na nami-measure lang ang intelligence sa pagpasa ng mga exams na related sa academic subjects. In first literacies, art, creativity, play, constructive meaning-making, McArdle and Wright asserted that educators should make deliberate connections with children's first literacies of art and play. A recommended new approach to early childhood pedagogy would emphasize children's embodied experience through drawing. This would include a focus on children's creation, manipulation, and changing of meaning through engaged instruction with art materials, through physical, emotional, and social immersion. The authors propose four essential components to developing or designing curriculum that cultivates students' artistic and creative literacy. Such approaches actively encourage the creative, constructive thinking involved in meaning making, which are fundamental to the development of the systems of reading, writing, and numbering. Number 1. Imagination and pretense, fantasy and metaphor. A creative curriculum will not simply allow, but will actively support play and playfulness. The teacher will plan for learning and teaching opportunities for children to be, at once, who they are and who they are not, transforming reality, building narratives, and mastering and manipulating signs and symbol systems. Number 2. Active menu to meaning making. In a classroom where children can choose to draw, write, paint, or play in the way that suits their purpose and mood, literacy learning and arts learning will inform and support each other. Number 3. Intentional, holistic teaching. A creative curriculum requires a creative teacher who understands the creative processes and purposefully supports learners in their experiences. Intentional teaching does not mean drill and rote learning, and indeed endless rote learning exercise that might indicate the very opposite of intentional teaching. What makes for intentional teaching is thoughtfulness and purpose, and this could occur in such activities as reading a story, adding a prop, drawing children's attention to a spider's web, and playing a rhythm and rhyme. Even the thoughtful and intentional imposing of constraints can lead to creativity. Lastly, co-player, co-artist. Educators must be reminded of the importance of understanding children as current citizens, with capacities and capabilities in the here and now. It is vital for teachers to know and appreciate children and what they know by being mindful of the present and making time for conversation, interacting with the children as they draw. Teachers must try to avoid letting the busy management work of their days take precedence and distract them from the being. To wrap it up, creativity can be defined as the process of having original ideas that have value. All children have capacity for innovation and creativity, and schools should work toward educating the whole being of the child. That's all for my report. Thank you for listening.